humans place a great value on the living earth, and right whales are one of the really extraordinary, wondrous creatures within that living earth. We have used them until they're nearly extinct. It's because of early whaling that their numbers are so low. And now they're dying because of our excessive use of the ocean.
Between the months of December and mid-May, an increasing number of right whales populated the waters of Cape Cod Bay. 2019 in particular brought the welcome news that 7 new calves had been identified. Sadly, as with most endangered animals, this announcement brought with it some truths that evoke alarm more than celebration.
Entanglements are increasing, mortalities are increasing, and these 7 calves this year and the 5 back in 2017 do not offset the more than 20 whales that died in the summer of 2017 and into 2018.
Entanglement from commercial fishing and aquaculture gear can cause significant injuries to whales, affecting their ability to swim, feed, and stay healthy enough to reproduce.
So those injuries are primarily animals hit by vessels, whether they've been bruised and have broken bones from being hit by the front of the ship, or struck by a rudder or a protuberance, or they've been cut up like a sliced bread by a ship going by with the propeller, a large propeller spinning, cutting into the blubber and muscle, and often into the bone and to the chest as well. So the deeper they go, obviously, the more immediately fatal these vessel strikes are.
In recent weeks, devastating news has hit the right whale community, as 8 more whales were found dead in Canadian waters. Of the 8, at least 4 were females, adding to an already catastrophic situation.
Yes, Kelvin comes to mind right away. She was the one that was an orphan. Her mother was killed by a ship in the Bay of Fundy when she was just about 8 months old. And we all thought that she was a goner. But then the next year we saw her, she had made it through. She was probably able to feed on her own at that age in the Bay of Fundy. And so now she's had calves of her own, but she's also been entangled quite a few times. So her mother was killed by a ship and she's been entangled. And that's one of the, those are the huge issues that are facing right whales right now.
As dire as entanglement can be, how significant does it impact the ability of female whales to get pregnant?
Well, certainly Amy Nelson at the New England Aquarium has shown that as the entanglement severity is increased, the productivity as calves have decreased, and she feels pretty strongly that that's a causal relationship. If you've had drag from ropes or a trap and damage and stress to the animal, its chance of having a successful pregnancy, and especially lactation, suckling of a new calf, is definitely decreased by the cost of the entanglement.
So we've got a bunch of whales that have not given birth for a long time. So yes, we may be talking about as many this year as 80 or more than 80 females that should be reproducing that are not. And that means that 7 is great, but it's too small a number. We'll hope that this is just a bad part of the cycle and that the cycle will pick up, and next year we'll have 20, 30, maybe 40 animals born.
So what is the concern with the birthing rate? Bridget McKenna from the Center for Coastal Studies oversees the data for the right whale ecology program.
They're calving later in life, so the average age of a female starting to calve used to be, I think, around 9 years old, and that's increased substantially. It seems like they're waiting longer to calve. Their interval used to be every 3 years, and again, that's elongated too. So not only are females waiting longer to calve, or maybe they're not able to, carry a calf to term, but they're also waiting longer in between calves, which then overall reduces the number.
Over half the remaining population of right whales came into Cape Cod Bay this spring, but that certainly doesn't account for the low birth rates.
But we know, for instance, that the male-female ratio is out of kilter. There are more than twice as many males in the population than females, even though the ratio should be it should be 1-for-1.
While entanglements and boat strikes have certainly made their mark on this fragile population of right whales, there appears to be more threats hampering their ability to thrive.
The other possibility is that these animals are just simply physiologically not capable of producing at the potential rate that they're supposed to. And there are some suggestions that in fact the right whales are physiologically compromised. It could go back to this question as to whether they are not finding food in the offshore feeding areas and hence they're coming into Cape Cod Bay. Maybe that's an indicator that the food is not up to par. We're not seeing the nutritional value or the caloric value or whatever, or enough food. There are lots of guesses. There are not many answers. We even worry sometimes that maybe there's a behavioral disruption. Perhaps noise in the system of females cannot be found by males, things like that.
Recent hearings in Washington addressing the protection of right whales revealed that noise in the ocean can play a significant impediment to the ability of whales to be able to communicate. Dr. Christopher Clark, a retired senior scientist and founding director of the Bioacoustics Research Lab at Cornell University, is an expert on underwater sound.
This is the thing that's so extraordinarily difficult for people to realize, is that just like you and I can hear a truck coming down the highway a mile away or maybe 2 miles away if it's really, really quiet at 2 o'clock in the morning, just add 1,000 to that when you're talking about ships. I mean, you have to realize that the ocean is incredibly transparent to sound.
Dr. Chris Clark said during that hearing is that whales will, and other marine life they'll keep increasing the sound of their calls and contact calls, and they're looking for mates, they're looking for food, they're trying to find each other. They'll keep increasing the sound to keep up with the increasing sound around them, the seismic or the ship noise or whatever. But then at a certain point they give up and they just stop trying to communicate. And that would be devastating, because if they can't find each other, they probably can't find the food or mates or any of those things that are important to keep the population going.
One other way of looking at it is that there's a right whale skeleton hanging in the New Bedford Whaling Museum with a calf. 2 animals, 4% of the reproductive, there's a female calf, 4% hanging right there. That really gets to you, actually, if you think about it that way.
Yeah.
I think in the short term, I live with hope, yeah. But I think there's a reasonable question as to whether there's hope for any rare animals on Earth, even whales that draw such attention. But think of all the lesser animals that don't have the charisma, so-called, that whales do. So there's a lot of extinction going on, and it has to do with our mismanagement of the world and of the ocean, and our misunderstanding of what animals need to live, and maybe a lack of interest in saving a lot of animals that aren't as charismatic. So will whales go that direction? I suppose eventually they're scheduled. I hope not in my lifetime.